the rest of the story. You didn't think it was over. And by the way, if you'll have me back, I promise not to sing. Willie Nelson does a much better job with that song than I tried to. Soon after I took the storytelling workshop, I developed my story about Curley Patterson. In so doing, I began to wonder what happened to Curley. It had been over 40 years. I did not know his first name. I only knew him as Curley. And by the way, my father was known as Curley, but no one has ever called me Curley. I did not know his first name. I only knew him as Curley. And it had been a long time since he drove into that driveway. I assumed he had died, but was not sure. I looked for him on the internet. I looked for him in the obituaries in the Dalton Daily Citizen News. I went to the Dalton Utilities, which was now the name of what had been the Water, Light, and Sewer Department. And sadly, no one I talked with knew how to access records from the 1970s. My mother is now 92 years old, and for the past 4 years, I visit Dalton twice a year to help my brother with her care. In the fall of 1922, I was relaxing at my brother's, and my mother and brother both live in the same condo complex, and the phone rang, and it was my mother. David, the home health nurse is here, and the plumber just arrived to fix the leaky faucet in the kitchen. I'm overwhelmed. Can you come down and deal with the plumber? I left immediately. I made my way to her condo, opened the door, and walked past the home health nurse and my mother in the living room into the kitchen. There was a big open space between the living room and the kitchen. I engaged the plumber and his wife, and by the time I had arrived, they had pretty much finished the repair. I'd talked to the plumber before, and so I asked, "Do you live in the condo complex?" And he replied, "No, I live in South Dalton." Dalton is in Whitfield County. The county has a population of over 100,000 people. The town itself has 35,000 people. When the plumber said South Dalton, my heart leaped. That was where Curley was from. Maybe they knew him, I asked myself. Did you ever know a Curley Patterson? I asked the plumber. He thought for a second or two and said, "No, I don't think I've ever heard that name." He turned to his wife. "Honey, did you ever know a Curley Patterson?" And a voice came from the living room. "Curley Patterson's my father." It was the home health nurse. I immediately went into the living room. I was a little emotional. The plumber and his wife saw it, made a quick exit. I introduced myself to the home health nurse, and we confirmed we were talking about the same person. It was hard for me to hold back the tears. Curley's act of kindness was the beginning of the transformation of my theology of who God is and how God sees our human journeys. Was this moment coincidence, or was it divine providence? I told Kathleen, Curley's daughter, the story I just told you. And Kathy told me that Wilbur and Curley Patterson had died in 2005. His tombstone is on the cover of your bulletins. She was very honest and confirmed that her dad had lived a hard life and was an alcoholic. He did leave a lot of pain and disappointment in his wake. She then explained that the wife I met on that fateful day I visited him when he first gifted me with fresh vegetables and pickled beets was not her mother. She was Curley's second wife after her mother and Curley's divorce. We reminisced, and I learned all about her life with Curley and her 3 siblings. And later I visited one of the sisters and told them the story. She then said something that I will never forget. Hearing your story, David, I need to tell you one thing that happened to Curley that I witnessed. When my mother, Curley's first wife, was dying in the hospital, Curley came to visit her. The marriage had been difficult. Curley was distraught, crying uncontrollably. And Kathleen says, he got down on his knees beside my mother's hospital bed and he asked her for forgiveness. Kathleen looked me in the eye and said, David, I want you to know my mother forgave him. Forgive our debts as we forgive our debtors. Someday I hope to ask Curley in the next life what his wife's forgiveness meant to him. Steve Garnis Holmes writes, before God judges you, God loves you. Before God sees your sin, God sees your wound. Before God sees how you thrashed in the world, God sees what you are fighting for. Before God sees the awful things you do to survive, God wants you to survive. Before God punishes you, God protects you from further hurt, because God never punishes, but wraps gentle arms around you. God's judgment is always that you need more love. Let us join together in singing our closing hymn, Amazing Grace.